So one of the key skills that a product manager needs to have is writing very detailed, very crisp notes. So we discuss what has to be delivered in a 15-day period, which we typically call as a sprint. So typically we'd want at least 1 hour with our developers to whatever features that we are planning. So we tell them, okay, this should work this way. Then we have the design team coming in, they show the design. So we work with the design team, oh, this is not looking right.
How is a typical day for a product manager? So, you can talk about your own typical day. What all you have to do, and also how many departments of what all are the departments that you have to work with? That might just give us more clarity on the roles and responsibilities, because it's like a lot.
Correct. So 1 second, right? So the product management is often talked about as a mini CEO kind of a role, right? You might have heard of this misnomer, but you don't have a lot of people. You will have, as you go in your career in product management, you have APMs, assistant product managers, and product managers reporting into you, but rarely you will find your direct scope of control expanding to these people, right? But yes, you have something. So we work generally in an e-commerce setting, we work in an agile methodology, right? We have sprints, we have scrum. So largely we have teams of developers with whom we have the sync up calls every day, right? So we discuss what has to be delivered, in a 15-day period, which we typically call as a sprint. And then we check up every day at 10 a.m. We start with a sprint call with our developers. Then we have another sprint call with the next set of developers, because one team is delivering on, let's say, payments product, right? So we only discuss the payments related thing with them. Then we have another team who will be doing something on the search part. So we'll discuss the search updates with those teams. So typically this updates part will take 45 minutes to 1 hour every day. And these are very critical because any kind of blockers which would affect the rollout would essentially, hinder your day. So those will have to be there. Then you also have to collaborate with your business stakeholders, right? So the business team often would discuss metrics with you. So you would have your North Star metrics. The metrics will define how your product is actually hitting the business. And are there any gaps within this, right? So we discuss all the major checkpoints that are there, any kind of issues that the business is kind of facing, which are impacting a lot of customers. That is also taken into account in the sync part itself, right? So typically starts at 10 and then all the sync ups end typically at 12, right? Then we actually get into a lot of grooming calls. So once we decide a feature, let's say talk about that one click pay feature, right? So a product manager has to write very detailed notes. So one of the key skills that a product manager needs to have is writing very detailed, very crisp notes, because those notes become the talking point or the basis for which the developers create the code. So we have to write user stories. We have to ensure that all the customer use cases are covered in that user stories, right? So typically we'd want at least 1 hour with our developers to whatever features that we are planning. So we tell them, okay, this should work this way. Then we have the design team coming in, they show the design. So we work with the design team, oh, this is not looking right. What is the data for having this button over here and not over here, right? What is the market research that the design team has done. Then we also work with a lot of business stakeholders. So these are not directly the category folk or the business folks, sales folks. These are the finance, the customer service, the supply chain, to see if something that we are building is going to impact them as well, right? Finally, a couple of hours to 3 hours, we typically have something called as focus time for us, because as I told you, right, a lot of our work is in strategizing about the roadmap, writing really high quality product stories, user stories, which the developers can refer to. And essentially, we also have to refer to a lot of bugs which come into the system, right? So we also have to vet them and we have to prioritize them.
Okay. So is that like how a typical day is? So the first half is, getting all the things together. And then in the second half, you sit with the team and then you find solutions. Is that how it works?
Correct. So so typically that's how it works. Yeah.